Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Get Inspired and Live in Your Power. And super excited to have another amazing guest. I just am so blessed to know so many amazing people. We have Derek Law on our podcast episode today. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you. It is great to be here.
You're welcome. We're so grateful to have you here. And I want to give everybody just a little bit of background on you, and then we're going to talk about some things. It was really cool to have a conversation with you and find out a little bit more about what you're doing right now. We've known each other for quite some time, probably about, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years, something like that.
Yeah.
We had some really awesome experiences together when we were working together before, and you've done a lot of stuff since then. So I just want to share a little bit about you. Derek Law is a Northern Utah native. He is a Pure Life Medical Area Representative for the state of Colorado and a South Ogden, Utah franchisee. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Derek owns Chimney Partners, the highest rated chimney cleaning company in the state of Utah. And he's also an investor, a business mentor, and a singer-songwriter. I remember when I heard that that was an interest that you had, and beyond an interest, I mean, you've actually submitted songs to be put into hymn books and lots of different things that a lot of people will dabble in it, but you're doing more than dabbling, which I thought was kind of cool. Another thing that I think is really wonderful about Derek is he strives to live every day as a gift. He is obsessed with improving himself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. He believes the real wealth of life is found in meaningful relationships. And I can attest to that. You know, you and your wife have a wonderful relationship, and with your kids and your parents, and I can attest to that. And Derek also loves writing and performing music because he believes that a well-done 3-minute song can have a more profound impact than a 300-page book. I think that should be on a plaque somewhere. A quotable quote. I'm going to put that as a quotable quote. Thanks for joining us, Derek. Tell us a little bit more about, well, what really stands out to you as the most, when I was sharing some of those things, what really stuck out to you as like, yeah, I really want to be known for that?
Well, and first of all, I have to say, I love being on here with you, Wileen. When I hear your voice, it's like a ray of sunshine.
Oh, thank you.
Brings back so many good memories and good times. But the thing that sticks out that I want to focus on the most, obviously I'm involved in multiple things. Living life as a gift is probably, the thing that I focus on the most, though, in everything that I do in each of my businesses in my personal life.
I love that. I'm just thinking about some of the decisions that you've made over this past, 3.5, 4 years, or 2.5, 3 years, whatever it was that we've known each other. And you've made some interesting decisions. And I feel like everything that you've done has been following steps of inspiration, that you feel inspired to do something and you and your wife get on the same page about it and you just go, you just act. One of those I remember was you sold your house and bought a motorhome. You got how many kids? 4 little kids?
We have 4 now. We had 3 at the time.
Had 3 at the time. Now you've got 4. And you just got in a motorhome and started traveling around the country. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was such so that experience was awesome. A lot of learning, a lot of growth. We made incredible memories together as a family. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Making that decision. So at that time I was mentoring with you, Wileen, and I also quit my job at that time in order to do that.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And I was just remembering as you were saying that, just that whole experience. I remember I felt like I needed to transition somehow in my life for about, I don't know, it's for at least 6 months at that point, and had finally worked up the courage to actually do something about it. And I walked in, and that's kind of what started this whole process. Is I was like, yep, I'm got to do something different with my life. And I had a good job. It was a great corporate job. I love the people I work with. I really enjoyed what I did, but it wasn't intentional. I was just kind of doing it because I was supposed to, because that's what you were supposed to do. I remember one day, the day that I actually resigned, I walked into my boss's office at the end of the day, told him that I was resigning, and then walked out of the building. And I was just like, what in the world did you just do? And then I got in my car and had a phone call with you, Wileen, and you were able to help me find so much peace in that decision. It was a super pivotal time of my life. Yeah, even after having worked up the courage to make the decision, I was just like, this is insane. You've lost it, as I'm walking out of the building. But really, just really appreciated having that phone call with you, and you helped me. Is a huge breakthrough in a lot of different ways, but you really helped me find peace with that decision. And another thing that I really remember from that phone call was really focusing on. I mean, we can have logic that kind of supports our decisions, but really, if we're only making the decisions in our life based off of logic, we're not living the inspired life that we were meant to live. And so that was one of the huge takeaways from that experience. And really, at that point, so within a few weeks from that point, we'd sold our house, bought an RV. Then, and I'd given the company, I actually gave them quite a while as far as notice goes, just out of respect to them. But so I kept working for a while, but we had all of that lined up within a few weeks, and then went off on a crazy adventure of living in an RV and starting businesses. And that slowly brought me to where I'm at today. Super pivotal time in my life.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And, that's been so long ago, I had forgotten, but as you're sharing it, I remember that moment. You were in your car and you had just resigned from your job. And I remember that call. And, I had a similar experience when I quit my full-time job. I had gone up and talked to my boss, same exact situation. I went downstairs and I was like, what the heck did I just do? And I said, I'm going to lunch. And I just went out and I sat in my car and I called my husband, and I'm just like having a panic attack out there. Like, what the heck did I just do? So I think, that is just, and I know somebody else that I interviewed had the exact same experience. So I think that's just part of inspiration. Is there's that little bit of panic, like, and you mentioned you were just doing the things that you're quote supposed to do, but it wasn't really intentional. And I think people just live their lives, they just walk through life, kind of sleepwalk with, okay, I'm supposed to get a job, okay, now I'm supposed to do this, now I'm supposed to do this, well, I'm this age, I should probably be doing this. And we make those choices, and it's when we step outside of that logic and the known and what everybody does, and it does feel a little bit scary, but that is where I feel like magic happens, when you can take steps, when you feel inspired and you don't know how it's going to turn out, like to sell your house and buy an RV and just travel around the country, not really knowing where you're going from week to week or whatever. And that was really what started you. So that pivotal moment that was a little bit nerve-wracking, that started you on this journey of becoming a serial entrepreneur, which we're going to talk about next. And I remember when you were in your RV, you started these flooring businesses.
Yeah.
You remember that? Okay. Tell us a little bit about how that came about. And I know there were some ups and downs, and there were some things that had caused you to feel like you were out of integrity with yourself. And so you had to make some changes in the business model. And tell us a little bit about that experience.
When we started full-time RVing, I was like, well, I gotta do something, right? And so I actually started focusing in on real estate investing really heavily, and did that for a while. And I still do that. I love investing in real estate, but realized I needed something that brought in more. The real estate is great, but the cash flow, unless you've built that up quite a ways, I needed to be somewhere else. And so I found an epoxy flooring business that I got into, and started this business in February of 2020. So right before COVID hit. In the beginning, we were getting phone calls and we had jobs and everything, and it was looking really good. And then COVID hit and Utah went into lockdown, and we literally didn't get a phone call for like 3 months straight.
Wow.
It completely dried up. People didn't want us in their homes, and they like everybody was just scared. It was a really interesting time to start a business, really difficult time to start a business. So that really forced me to question a lot of what we were doing in the business, and really get in and get my hands dirty and reevaluate a lot of things. And I just hired employees, 3 employees. I didn't have work for them, and so it kind of put me in a position where I was like, well, do I lay all these people off, or they just left their jobs to come work for me? But I didn't. I chose. We did jobs for my friends and family, kept them. I did my best to keep them busy and keep them employed, and really had to dig down deep to get through that time of life. It was super interesting. We'll call it interesting, but I learned a lot. And but in that, I totally reevaluated what we were doing. We'd been given a system we gotten into this. It's kind of like a licensing agreement, kind of like a franchise with a business, and that company, they, with all that was going on, they decided to pivot in ways. And so it gave me an opportunity to take the business and really make it mine and reevaluate all the processes, all of our systems, the products that we were selling, that quality, how I was training people, all of it. And the lessons I've learned there, it's blessed me in every single business I've done since then. So I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was a really painful time of life, but I absolutely wouldn't trade it.
Awesome. I want to just bring out a couple things, especially for our listeners who are maybe at a job and they're just feeling like they're not being intentional with their lives, like you said, and they're wanting to move forward, with something different. It isn't necessarily going to be roses right out the gate. And this is actually the typical path. What I've discovered as I've worked with my clients, and I've interviewed people on this podcast, and me myself, in my journey, that typically when you make that choice to really step out in inspiration, it requires a lot of faith. And that digging deep, like you said, deciding that you're going to do everything that you can to get some work so that you don't have to lay these people off. I mean, that was super integrous of you. And I know that's a really high value on your scale is integrity, because we had talked about, like you said, the quality of the products that you were selling and the processes and everything to make sure that the customers were getting what they deserved and everything. That's really high level for you. So digging deep, but there's no promise in the beginning when you follow inspiration. There's no promise that it's going to all work out. But as you said, every step of the way has been a step towards where you are now. I do also want to mention, you had shared with me that there were only 3 out of the 13 franchises of that flooring business that survived that drought during COVID. Is that right? Did I write that down right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you are one of those. So that is huge. That's huge credibility for you. And yeah, I just think that's amazing. Now you have sold out of that business, right? Have you sold out of the business, or are you still doing it?
Eventually, I decided to pivot and move away from that business.
Okay.
And we just had better opportunities. And so,
Okay.
and so I decided to pivot and move on. And one of those opportunities was my chimney cleaning business. I've gotten this great opportunity to take over part of my family's business. Like, it was just this part of the business that was still hanging around, but I could see a ton of potential there. And so I got the opportunity to license that from them and run that under my own business. And I do that now. At that time, it was just where I was at. It was like, well, you can either do this or this. And so I decided to move on and do the chimney business.
All right. Awesome. And world class, top rated in Utah, right? So again, really digging deep and making sure that you're providing a great experience for your clients or for your customers, and also for your employees, and just doing a really great job, obviously, because of that rating. One of the things that I also, and we're going to get into your Pure Life Medical Clinic, which is what you're doing right now. We're going to get into that in just a moment. I want to just comment on what I've noticed. I don't even know if you really realize this when we were talking on the phone. I noticed it and pointed it out to you. You can tell me if you knew this before, but you have this knack of developing managers, developing employees to the point where they can be leaders, where you can actually get them to a point where you trust them to turn the business over to them. Because like I said, you're kind of a serial entrepreneur, you get the business, so it's stable, and then you move on to something else. Is that something that you realized before I pointed it out to you?
Yes and no. I mean, so it's definitely a huge focus of mine. But in our conversation, I didn't realize how, right, like how core that is and what I do. And it really is the very core of what I do, is developing people and developing my business through those people and through how I develop those people and the systems and processes that they use. So I love that you helped me see that in a much greater way.
So cool. And along with that, you were talking about the systems and processes. You have system and process to develop, because most of these people start out like as technicians, right? They start out as just the guy who cleans the chimney or the guy who does the flooring, and then you develop those people into leadership quality, which I think is amazing. I'm sure that that's why your company is top rated in Utah, because you've got people that you are working with, because you have that ability to develop these people, because your business really is all about the people that interact, on the interface with your clients, with your customers. So you talked about systems and processes to develop these people. And there's also, you developed a strategy, a business strategy or a system and process to build your business. And that's how you've been able to move from one business to the next and still even maintain the chimney business. And now you're opening Pure Life Medical Clinics. And I think you said you have one in Utah, right? In Ogden. And then you are also the head franchisee, master franchisee in the state of Colorado. And so you're looking at now opening a second facility in Colorado. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we have the one in South Ogden. We're looking to open another one right now in Colorado. And then I also sell those franchise units in Colorado and then support all of those franchisees.
Awesome. And how amazing to be a franchisee with you and to be able to use that system and process that you've developed and to just follow the dotted line to building the people and having a business that's successful, that at some point, if you choose to, you could actually pass it on to someone who works there in the clinic to run. You could still, I think you still would maintain ownership. Is that right? Is that how you normally do it?
Yes. And that's what I help those other franchisees understand too, is how to own that franchise and eventually become a semi-absentee owner and, potentially eventually put a general manager in and become an absentee owner.
Nice. Really nice. So let me just repeat what I think I heard you say, is that part of your business strategy is to develop the people within your company so that at some point, if you wanted to turn that over to a general manager, you would still maintain ownership if you wanted to. And then you could step away as more of not a silent partner, but
an owner, but like an absentee owner.
An absentee owner, yes, which is amazing, because how many entrepreneurs out there, and listeners, I know that you are probably one of these, who you get so wrapped up in your business and you're just like 24/7 in your business, and you have a hard time even taking a vacation. And especially these solopreneurs that are trying to do everything, wear all the hats. And it works for some people. Some people just really want to have that control. And I totally get that if that's you. But if you really want to grow, if you want to allow yourself to expand and become more than what you can do from 9 to 5 in a business, then it sounds like this is just a really great way to do it, to, develop those people to the point where you can turn it over, and then you can go fishing, or you could go start a new business, or you could open a Pilates studio, or whatever your passion is. You could go sing and write songs if you wanted to. Yeah, I just love this idea. And it's been such a foreign idea for me for so long, because I feel like even though I do have a team that helps me, I just feel like I'm just in my business all the time. And I don't know, for me, maybe it's a little bit different because I am my product. But for specifically like brick and mortar stores and service oriented businesses and things like that, I mean, it makes so much sense what you're doing.
Thank you. I'm super, super passionate about that, right? About taking a business. Well, so the way that I look at it is really creating things, right? And when I think about like living my life like a gift, in the end of my life, I think all that will matter to me is what I created, like what I left, what I built and left on this planet. And so, whether that's a business or it's a meaningful relationship with somebody, it's interesting to me. I'm a believer in God, right? And so in a higher power, and whatever you want to believe, I love and respect you and respect your opinions. But so that's my belief. And it's interesting. God doesn't, if you believe in him, you believe that he created this world and this universe. He doesn't have to be here physically to make this world work perfectly, just how he wanted it to. Somehow he was able to breathe his life, his spirit into this planet, and then have it function the way that it's supposed to, right? It rains just like it's supposed to. The sun shines just like it's supposed to. And so that's my question with the business is, how do you get to the point where you can take this creation and breathe your life into it and have it run just like it should, whether you're there or not? And I think that's something that a lot of, like you mentioned, Wileen, that a lot of business owners struggle with is they're like, I have this standard, right? Like it works really well when I'm there. I know that it all goes just right. And even if there's mistakes made or whatever, I make sure that they're taken care of and all of that. I mean, it can be a really difficult thing as a business owner, somebody who's really passionate about what you're doing, to hand those reins to somebody else and hope that they do that in the right way. And so developing systems and developing people to make sure that, to take that creation and make sure that it keeps operating in the same way that you, like, according to your standards, right? That is the trick. That's the goal. And so, and I could get into a lot of that, but I definitely understand what it's like to be, a business owner and think, well, like it happens really well when I'm the one doing it. And because I have that love and that passion, I have so much, I care about my customers so much, and I just want to see them pleased. And I know what it's like to take and try to hand that off to somebody. So I have a lot of empathy for all business owners out there.
Awesome. I am just like absorbing this. I'm just soaking this all in. I love how you compared God creating the earth and setting it up so that he could be absent. He could be an absent owner, and that he had the trust in us puny little humans that have no clue what the heck we're doing down here to run it, to like keep it going. I'm surprised that it hasn't like gone off the rails more than it has because of that. But what I'm hearing you say, and I think this is so key to making a decision one way or the other, whether you take full ownership and you don't let anybody touch it, or you give the reins over to someone else is what you said, that highest standard of integrity that you have, the highest standard of your client's experience and the highest standard of how the business is run. So one person that was in fear would want to hold on to that and would want to keep it. And I'm the only one that can do it. I'm the only one that can do it as good as I can do it. Another person like you would take that highest standard of integrity and you would create a system around it so that no matter who was in charge, that you could trust that that highest standard of integrity was being met.
Yes, 100%. And as I'm talking to my team, as I'm talking to my wife, the term that I use for my systems is I want it to be McDonald's stupid. And I say McDonald's stupid. That sounds like a negative term. I say that with a ton of admiration for what McDonald's is able to do and being able to take fast food chain and use high school kids throughout the nation and spit out the same product every time. They were able to breathe that life, that spirit into what they did, into the system, and perfected it that way. And at the same time, I feel like it's a two-edged sword, right? When you're trying to develop people, giving them some freedom to help develop and build upon and improve is really important as well in helping them grow. And so I want those systems to be bulletproof. And at the same time, I don't want the people to only be looking at the system. I want them to look at the principles that the system is based off. For example, with our Pure Life Medical Clinic, so some of the systems that we have to deal with how we clean the clinic and how we keep everything orderly. And, we have all of these opening tasks. So every day when people come in, they go through this checklist of tasks and things to do to make sure that it's all just right. And that's part of that system. But what I teach them is to actually go into every room and say, does this room look spa-like? Because it's a medical spa. We don't just want it to be kind of like a Dell experience. We want people to feel relaxed and calm and feel like it's a place where they can heal. And so teaching them to look at it with that principle in mind, walk into every room and just think, does this look like a spa? And if not, what's out of place and what should I do about it? And not just be stuck to that rigid system. I feel like you absolutely have to have both of those things. And I'm obsessed with both of them. So as you can tell, this is something I love talking about.
Yeah, you're truly passionate about it. And I think being obsessed about it is what makes you so valuable. I mean, this is why if I were going to open a franchise of any sort, I would definitely come to you. I would want to have you teach me your strategy, your business strategy, because I don't want to be like chained to that franchise for the rest of my life. Even if it's something that I'm truly passionate about, I definitely want to have, the freedom to have an exit strategy and to be able to turn that business over to somebody else at some point. And how awesome it is not to have the only choice to be to sell it at some point, just to like unload it because I'm tired of doing it or whatever, to still be able to be living my life and still making money from it. I think that's amazing. I love what this is just, testament of how you're empowering your people and helping them step into a leadership position to just every single day walk through and say, is this a spa-like atmosphere? Does this feel spa-like? Does this room look spa-like? And so you're giving them, it's not like a yes or no check. It's they get to actually make some decisions about that. And I think that's awesome. And I remember when you were doing the flooring business, the man that you were training to take over the managing of that, you wanted his feedback because he was the one that was boots on the ground, actually using the materials. He was the one that was interfacing with the customers and, hearing their complaints or whatever. And you've incorporated all that into your system, which is super cool.
100%. And I think like as a manager, as the owner, I think you have to maintain that
that level of contact and empathy for each position. With my Pure Life Medical business, I've chosen to operate in every single role in the business, at least for a time, right? So for a number of months, I chose to do that intentionally so that I could empathize with the individuals in those positions and understand those processes and systems, improve those. Then when your technician or whoever comes to you and they're like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, and these are the struggles or whatever, then it's really easy to empathize with. You stop looking at them as a number, which is really easy to do if you're trying to manage a business from the top and all you're looking at is KPIs and revenue and profit and cost of customer acquisition, all of those things. And so I think it's super important to never become disconnected to those people on the front lines of that business.
I love that. Thank you. I want to share how our listeners can get in touch with you, because I'm guessing, that there's somebody that's listening out there that maybe is thinking about buying a franchise or that has a business where that they feel like they're chained to, or, there's somebody out there that would really benefit from a phone call from you. And so I'm going to be sharing how to get in touch with you. Before I do that, I just want to give you a little heads up. I'm going to be asking you a final question. And that is that any piece of advice that you have for our listeners to show up in their business to empower their employees more. Okay. So that's the question I'm going to ask you, is advice that you can give our listeners of how they can show up in their business to empower their employees more, or their team, whatever they call them. Okay. So kind of be thinking about that for just a second. And I do want to share with you how to get in touch with Derek. He's actually given his email address. So I'm going to read that off, and it will also be in the description. Derek, DEREK, at purelifemedical.com. And pure is spelled PUR. PURLIFEMEDICAL. So purelifemedical.com. Derek at purelifemedical.com. And he has also given a really generous offer to schedule a free business strategy call. So I would snatch this up in a heartbeat if you're having any struggles in your business whatsoever, or if you think at some point you might want to turn your business over to somebody, but you'd like to still make money on it. Definitely take Derek up on this. So all you have to do is just email him, Derek at purelifemedical.com, and let him know that you'd like to have that free strategy call. Okay, Derek, have you had a chance to think about the question?
I have, and thanks for giving me a second to think about it. And I just wanted to say real quick about that call. When I say that I believe that relationships are the wealth of life, that really is what I believe. I love connecting with people, especially people who want to grow and who are eager to learn. And it's surreal for me right now being on this call with and on this podcast with Eileen. I love that you're doing a podcast, by the way. You're like the perfect person to do a podcast. So is it like thinking back to that time in my life where I was in that place where I was just like, I gotta do something different, and just didn't know how to move forward. And Eileen was pivotal in me doing that. So I'd absolutely encourage anybody listening to this to keep listening, to keep to keep following Eileen and be involved in whatever she's doing, because literally changed my life. And I love to help you any way that I can on that journey as well. And then as far as just showing up in my business or in your business in a way that empowers employees, I think it really does come down to having excellent systems, understanding those systems and setting those standards in place. And most people don't make mistakes because they're trying to. It's because there's a failure in a system. But then at that point, so giving them a great chance for success, and then at that point really expecting them to step up and take the ball and run with it, letting them do that, and kind of like getting out of their way in a very like supportive way, like stepping aside and letting them do it, and then praising them as much as possible. Obviously, right? Like it's tough and as a parent, I feel the same way, but you're always seeing things that you want to correct, or like, hey, don't do this or do this, or with your employees, with your kids, but really focusing on like getting out of their way and then just praising them and encouraging them for the work that they're doing. I think the more that you focus on those things that you want, the more that those things will come to be. And so the more that you tell your employees, how grateful you are for them doing those things that you want them to do, the more they will focus on those and do those. And so hopefully that's a decent answer, and encouraging them for the work that they're doing. I think the more that you focus on those things that you want, the more that those things will come to be. And so the more that you tell your employees, how grateful you are for them doing those things that you want them to do, the more they will focus on those and do those. And so hopefully that's a decent answer to that.
I think that's an awesome answer. Thank you. And thank you so much for your testimonial of me too. That means a lot. Touched my heart. Thank you. I think that was some wonderful advice. I feel like as humans, when we make a change, it makes a change, right? It affects every area of our lives. And you might think that you're showing up in your business, empowering your employees, but at the same time, you're giving yourself more freedom. You're allowing yourself to step into a place where you don't have to be there 24/7. You don't have to be like always looking over everybody's shoulder, micromanaging. So empowering them is also empowering you at the same time. So I think it's wonderful, wonderful advice. Well, thank you so much, Derek. This has been really awesome having you on the show. I just have loved reconnecting with you and just finding out more about what you're doing. It's definitely a breath of fresh air to know that these things that we learn in kindergarten to, empower people, talk positive, say the things that you want to have happen instead of like harping on the things that we don't like. It's really refreshing to know that these things don't just work in like a family situation or in school or whatever, but they actually do work in business, and that you can create a really thriving, successful, world-class, top-level business because you're doing that. You're just a really great example of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. It has been an absolute pleasure just getting to talk to you. And I almost forgot that we're on a podcast, right? Other than than those few times that you mentioned the listeners, and it kind of pulled me out of it. But I love you're just so good at connecting with people and making them feel heard and seen, and right, like you have such a gift for inspiration, like receiving inspiration in the moment, and I really cherish that. So thank you for having me on here.
Thank you. You are welcome. All right. And thank you, listeners, for being here. I really appreciate you being here. And I know Derek is excited to hear from you. So be sure to check that description for his email address so you can get on a call with him for a free business strategy session. And look forward to being back together again with another awesome guest. And so until then, go out and get inspired and live in your power.